try to put it like offense and defense into these kind of chunks, right? Like these general archetypal ideas, right? So like on defense, right, you can evade, right, which would just be moving away, just gaining distance, right? So you can do an evasive maneuver like back jump, back dash, walk backwards, and stuff like that. Or you could even do like a special move that has some sort of evasive property. Like, for example, sometimes you see chem players in the corner, like if they get cornered, you'll see them do this, right? You'll see them do to try and go over top of people, especially if in their V trigger. Boom, try to escape. See them try and get away with that. That's like an evasive technique. And the second type of defense is contesting, right? So you have evasion and contesting. Contesting is just the person's waiting for a hole in your block string or some hole in your pressure, waiting for your turn to be up, right? And then they forcibly take control of the situation again, right? They're not waiting for your turn to be up. They're forcing your turn to be over. Right? That's contesting. And then the third type of defense, or the third category I generally think about is defense via attrition, right? Which is literally just straight up, pretty much blocking, just waiting, right? So like, this sequence right here, right? If I did this, Ken could evade me by jumping over the fireball, right? If I do down medium kick at like max distance, he can jump over this fireball. He can just hold up and jump. He could contest by doing his fireball and vulnerable uppercut. And he could play defense via attrition by waiting for my turn to be up, which would be after the fireball comes in, right? There's three routes you can kind of take with those forms of defense in that situation. So what I do is I try to look for what, like most of the time when you watch players, they have one type of defense they prefer the most. Like it's habitual, right? Everyone has it. There's one thing people prefer to do the most. It might change a little bit over time, but generally in a match you can spot it. Especially in a first to two, especially in a first to 5 or 10, a longer match, better players will evolve the way they defend and stuff. So what I do on offense is I try to look for like what category they fit in, right? So I'm like, okay, is this guy playing defense via attrition? Is he playing by evading, or is he playing by contesting? And I have offensive categories that counter the defensive categories, right? So I have against evasion, I think, okay, I want to pursue him. Pursuit, right? Offense via pursuit. That would be stuff like stagger pressure, right? This kind of staggered pressure, stroke plus frames, walk out plus frames, that's pursuing them. So even if they walk backwards, right, I keep going, right? Or stuff like run cancels, that's pursuit, right? You're pursuing them. And then if they're contesting, right, you have just straight pressure. Like if someone is contesting, you just have extended just pressure. Like there's pursuit and then there's just pure pressure. And if someone is contesting, just put all your frame traps as tight as they can be, right? So like if I started out by pursuing someone, right, they might go, oh man, this guy's doing a lot of walk up. I can really interrupt him and get my turn back, right? Or he's doing a lot of run. I can interrupt him to get my turn back. So they might start contesting. And then I go, okay, this guy's contesting. The counter to that, this is just straight, clean, vanilla pressure. Just tight block strings. No holes, just regular old, real pressure. And then if they have defense via attrition, right, you have mix-ups. So when you mix someone up on your offense, you're just changing your timing or your pattern or something, right? So like say for example, this guy's crouch blocking all the time, I go, okay, defense via attrition, huh? I need to apply a mix-up to encourage him into a different defensive type, right? Or, you know, I can punish him with throw. Right? That's kind of how I think about it, right? You got 3 types of offense, you got 3 types of defense. and it's kind of like rock paper scissors game. Of course, it's way more complex than that, right? But that's just like a generalization I use to try to help me. It's just what I see observing defensive patterns. So like, even if like I've never done a throw bait on someone before, you can look at their preferred type of defense and be like, okay, is a throw bait gonna work, right? Because it fits into these categories, right? I don't know. But for that reason, chunking those types together, I find that it causes me to play, I guess, too dependent on general options. Like one of my main weaknesses is that I don't have good manual frame traps, right? I'm not very good at opening people up without throw or pursuing them, right? So like, I'll do pressure and someone will just block me, and I'll be like, fuck, I have to get my way back in, right? I don't really have good stagger pressure game. Like, I don't have the good walk up game. I don't have the good sneak in overhead kind of game. That's definitely one thing I need to work on, is increasing the options I have when I need to pursue someone down. So that's one of my main weaknesses. But this train of logic that I'm talking about, right? Like these general types, this whole rock paper scissors game. If you lean too far into it and think, okay, these are my general options. Like, for example, I have sequences, right? You need sequences to play the game. And what I mean is, you need a canned set of actions that you've practiced before so that you can execute them and simultaneously not have to dedicate an extreme amount of mental power, right? So I'll go, okay, I have my pursuit sequences, right? Like I have boom, run, right? Or I have run, or I have this, walk up, right? I have these 3 sequences. And I can execute these without thinking. Like, I don't even have to look at the screen. I can just do them, right? And I too often go, okay, this is my sequence. It fits into this category. This is all I can do. It kind of stifles my in-the-moment creativity, right? So that's definitely something I need to work on. But on the subject of sequences, right? This is one thing I find that separates a lot of beginner players from a lot of intermediate players, is having and understanding sequences. So, like I said before, basically a sequence is just a canned set of actions that you've practiced before so that you can execute them without really expending a bunch of brain power. Because if you imagine down by the EX bars, if you imagined a third meter, call it like the focus meter or the mental energy meter or whatever, right? Every person playing the game only has so much mental space they can take up, right? And say some of that is, a small percentage is dedicated to controlling your character, and another small percentage is dedicated to observing the game state, right? And then the majority of that mental bar, that mental meter or whatever, what takes the majority of that up is processing the observation, right? So say we're at this distance, right? You see this? You just look at it. You boom, take the data in. Okay, I need to process it. Okay, I can roundhouse here, right? I could take a scoot forward and medium kick. You know, I can whiff punish right here with this button, right? I'm remembering all those things. Players are remembering all those things once they've gotten that data. And you want to make, that's a complex task. That's difficult to do, right? Because not only are you remembering like, oh, this spacing, this simple stuff. You're thinking, okay, my opponent has this much meter. when he has this much meter, he prefers to do these things. Or when I stand at this spacing, my opponent previously has waited a split second and then moved forward. Or my opponent prefers to shell up when I go to this spacing. What are they looking for? You're trying to analyze, like, okay, where is he putting his mental focus, right? And if you don't have sequences, if you don't have pre-canned actions, right? And I'm not talking like just meaty attacks and stuff like that, right? Those are sequences. Like after this, I know I can do this and meaty and stuff. Those are sequences. But I also mean, like, what do you do after you block Ken's -2 attack and he's right in front of your face? What do you do after you block Armika's roundhouse, right? Like for example, if this Ken does a -2 attack to me, right? I go, okay, -2, I can press jab if I want to touch him, right? I can jab into down strong. That's a sequence I have. Just pre-canned. Just do it. Just apply it. I don't have to process this. I don't have to come up with it on the spot. I already have it, right? Because I've mentally gone over this situation before. Or another sequence I have is I know I can hold forward and throw, right? That's another sequence. Or I know that he can throw me, but I can shimmy, right? Third one. Or I know that if I crouch, the second hit of this target combo will whiff, right? So I have the 3 types in there. I have the defense via contestation, right? Like I'm contesting my turn back. I have attrition, right? I'm waiting for him to make a mistake. And then I have the evasion by manipulating space. I just have those pre-canned, right? That's the kind of situation I'm talking about. You gotta have sequences. And you can use sequences to manipulate your opponent's mental focus, right? So, say for example, Ken always does medium kick, right? If I perform a specific action every time after the Ken does his medium kick, he's going to be observing that. He's going to download that in his head. And I know he knows it, and he knows I know it, right? And this is where the game is, right? So, okay, boom, I've applied this stimulus to him. Now I'm going to observe his response, right? So he always sees that I just block, right? Or maybe he sees that I always contest with a button. Maybe next time he'll medium kick into EX, right? You can not only condition people on offense, but you can condition them on defense as well. But the important thing is to be able to develop the skill to be aware of where your opponent's mental focus is, and simultaneously free up your own, right? Because that's the majority of your mental focus is going to be on determining what the opponent's mental focus is on, right? Like, where is he looking? What situations is he considering? What tactics is he using that he might throw out? What new tactics can he bring in? Is he going to repeat tactics, right? You're thinking of all these things during the match. So if you don't have sequences, if you don't have these pre-canned actions that you can do, and if you don't have a wide plethora of them, that's another issue. That means that you're playing flowchart. But if you have a wide plethora of sequences that you can go through, you know, to create different interactions for different situations, you don't have to really dedicate a lot of mental energy to coming up with it on the fly. And that really lets you start playing the mind game, air quotes, right? So that's basically the number one thing I think separates beginner players from intermediate players. You can learn all your combos, you can learn all the normal spacing, you can learn all the possible interactions between normal trades, you can learn all the characters' special moves, you can learn their health and stun values and all this stuff. But if you don't have sequences and you don't know how to use them to manipulate your opponent and use them to probe information from your opponent, you're still a beginner player. Yeah, like just like Kamikaze said, like, all right, if he's always pressing jab, you can do the frame trap, right? You can observe, right? But like, if every time you see this move, you have to like really calculate, you'd be like, Okay, medium kick. I have to react. Pay attention. Medium kick is -2. It has A-frame startup. If you're actually consciously going through this in the front of your head, so to speak, you have like a resource distribution problem in your focus communication. So having sequences is really important, right? So what was I saying earlier? I was saying, okay, I have these general archetypes that I use, these general situations that I chunk data in, right? So I have pursuit offensive sequences, I have mix-up offensive sequences, and I have the straight pressure offensive sequences, right? At any interaction, really, you should have at least 4 of those. You should have 4 things that you're just ready to do, right? You've trained 4 things generally. I think that's a good starting number. Of course, like better players have more. Right? But my problem is that I don't have enough sequences. Right? I haven't practiced these situations enough. So that's definitely one thing I'm looking to work on. Like, training mode is just not for combos, right? Training mode is for figuring out situations, right? Like, for example, if this Ken does stand fierce, right? Ken does stand fierce to me. Alright, I know it's -3. So, alright, if I want to play aggressively, I can touch him with a normal attack. And, right? Touch him with a normal attack. If I want to play defensively, I can retreat because I know I have time to walk, right? I have 3 frames to walk here. I know I can retreat, right? Those are some sequences I could use in this situation, right? I'm looking at the situation and I'm thinking, okay, what is my plan? I have to have strategies ahead of time, because in a match, you see it all the time when players flub. Basically, when players choke, it's that they don't have a sequence, right? They don't have a sequence lined up. Not only that, let's see. So I guess more to expand on the point of using repetitive action to encourage your opponents to do something right. Basically, every action you take in the game is a stimulus towards your opponent, period. Even if you do nothing, you're still putting information on the screen for them to observe. And if your opponent is a human being and not a computer, well, even computers, right? As long as they're not a super genius with Sharingan eyes who can react to everything, right? As long as they're another person playing the game, they're gonna have a response, right? So you're gonna do an action, even if it's standing still, and it's gonna elicit a certain response. That's gonna depend from player to player, right? But every action you take is gonna bring a response from your opponent. So if you can just go, okay, I'm gonna do this action, and then be dedicated to observing the response, you can really manipulate people, right? Like, so for example, like, okay, every time I do this block string, my opponent stands up, right? It doesn't matter why, it just matters when, right? So this stimulus, right, this block string, stimulus A causes response A, right? Stimulus, response. So, okay, I know they stand up. So when I do this, they stand up. So I can put that in my back pocket, right? I can put that in my mental reserves, and I can either act on it immediately, right? Or I can condition them to get the response I want, right? So say I do this a bunch of times, and it doesn't really give me anything. but my opponent gets away. They get this. They do something. They get away. They get to do what they want, right? I can do this knowing full well that it's gonna let my opponent get away, but I choose to do it again because when the time comes, or when I feel it's proper, using my judgment and my game sense, right, I can go, okay, I'm gonna do this sequence. I know he's gonna stand up because I've done it multiple times before. I've encouraged him to stand up because he's been rewarded for doing it multiple times before. Now I'm gonna punish him, right? Then I can go low or do a sweep or something, right? It's important to observe the opponent and be wary of what you're stimulating them to do. Right? That's the gist of it. It's just basic conditioning. Is every action you take is a stimulus to the opponent. They're gonna have some response, right? So you want to be able to observe, like, okay, if I do this, it causes him to do that. I put it in my mental pocket. I can come back to it later, or I can work on it in some way, right? I can do something with this information that generates an advantage for me. But where the real skill comes in, I think, right? I'm just a novice player, so this is just speculation for me. But where the real skill comes in is what I was talking about earlier, is being aware of where your opponent's mental focus is at. Because they're doing the same thing to you, right? They're doing the same thing to you. So while I'm going like this and going, okay, this causes him to stand up, I can put this in my pocket and get him low later, right? Conditioning him to stand up and walk back. I can use this for when it counts. They're doing the same thing. That guy's going, oh man, whenever he does that, I'm gonna walk backwards, and he's gonna think I'm walking backwards every time, right? And every interaction you take in Street Fighter is that. Is you're doing that, the opponent's doing that. That's how the game is. So it's just the skillful part. It's so interesting and deep, right? And it doesn't have to be like Street Fighter. Any 1v1 competitive thing is like that. That's definitely like a super ambiguous kind of concept that I think a lot of people interact with, but they fail to be able to express. Yo, what's up, Maddie? Yeah, BMAC is correct. Yo, what's up, Admiral? BMAC is definitely correct. It is super easy to condition yourself in a sense, right? That's why I say it is most important to only question when and not why, right? Because if you start questioning why, you can mix yourself up, right? So like, aha, I see that he stands up every time I do down light punch, down strong. He's standing up because I'm doing this, right? This is the reason why, right? I understand why. So the next time I do this, I can reason why he'll do this, and then he'll do something totally out of bounds, or like, I guess a better example would be like, okay, I've thrown him, I'm plus, I get a meaty here, so he will not use a wake-up attack, right? Because I understand why. I understand the reason why he cannot do a wake-up attack is because I'm plus. I assume that he understands why, and that can be really bad for you. So asking why is the wrong place to start. You want to ask when, because inevitably you will get your plus frames, you will do your meaty setup, and the opponent will wake up with down fierce, and it will clock you because you try to go for some clever mix-up. You've already started on level 2 or level 3 of the mix-up. So it's important just to ask when. So just observe and see when, right? So okay, if I do the throw, I see that he doesn't press a button. It doesn't matter why. The plus, me having plus frames, all that stuff, generally irrelevant, right? It only really matters when. I think what BMAC is saying is totally true. If you start asking why, and you start like, oh man, I'm conditioning this guy so hard, so pro, right? oh man, he's gonna do this because of this reason, you'll get bopped most of the time, right? You'll be like, man, why can I beat good players but I can't beat noobs, right? That's a question a lot of people have, and that is because, to me, it would seem they're asking why and not when, right? They're observing why instead of observing when. If you observe when, it's lockdown. It's guaranteed, 100%. It's an immutable fact of human psychology. Right? It's just much more information that you can use. Right? Knowing why is just too verbose, right? Not only are you able to like meta yourself, but you have to dedicate more mental power to processing why, right? Like you have to be like, okay, I have these many plus frames. My dash is 15 frames. This is a 6-frame startup move. All this shenanigans. I mean, you could just say win and free up all that mental space. And you can use that mental space, like I was saying earlier, to basically download the interactions you have with the opponent, right? Like I apply this stimulus, it generates this response from him. Let me put that in my mental bank. Yeah, I would say, while it is kind of a nebulous topic, right? The number one thing that separates beginner players and intermediate players is understanding of, I guess for lack of a better term, the analogy I'm using is the mental meter, right? The focus meter, so to speak. I think I want to try and make some YouTube videos on this. I want to break it up into a couple parts too. Like, I'll have one like, okay, this is conditioning. This is the basis of it. Then have another one where it's like, this is the concept of a sequence. And this is why sequences are important. But everything is so deeply interrelated. It's kind of difficult to discuss one without kind of simultaneously discussing the others at the same time. Practice the Chun-Li combo. But you can definitely see it. Like, understanding and looking for that in a player will help you determine basically good players from bad players. Like you could put a novice player, you could put a weaker player, right, against an extremely good player in a fighting game they've never played before. Put them on random select, and you'll be able to tell, the stronger player from the weaker player, because they'll just generate these sequences. They'll after the first 3 or 4 games, they'll have these sequences. They'll have the ability to cause their opponent to do things. They'll be able to make reads easier because they're using their mental muscle, right? You can just see it. It doesn't really matter what game or what character. Oh, where's my bird?